out. Also, Campbell was down from July 6th through July 26th for, they had maintenance on a shaft there, and they also determined there was a boiler tube leak. It's been fixed, but it was down from July 6th through the 26th. And you'll see that Campbell was $102,000 expense compared to a budget of $148,000. And as a result, our deficiency energy, just a couple lines down, was 73 compared to 48. Does that make sense? So really, that we're buying power off the market because we didn't get it through Campbell.
I have a question on the payroll part to
Yeah.
offset your two expenses. When they put their time into payroll, do they punch in a specific key that would go to capital expenditure versus the normal, and then that's how you guys separate that, or is it just one key?
Yep,
And
actually,
that part of it?
Julie, the guys have a timesheets and they're recording what they're doing, and Julie will say, okay, the AMI project was part of this work order, and this work order is part of this GL, which is a work in progress GL, which doesn't hit this statement.
So there's still a handwriting time tickets, not an ADP where they go online and capital put it to help you improve your efficiencies?
We do have a smart utility systems, part of the AMI platform that's they're developing like smart mobile workforce.
Yeah, we use
It's,
that. It's pretty cool.
It is a tablet or a phone app where we can start doing this. We just need to really
Okay.
implement it.
All right.
But we would like to get away from the paper timesheets where guys are recording them by hand.
It's great.
Yes, it would be very helpful for the guys and Julie.
Just checking.
It seems old school, but it is a good way, though, to make sure we get it in the right bucket. For a lot of the time, things weren't getting tracked accordingly, so you couldn't tell where you're spending your money or where you should be spending more money. So we are tracking it, we just need to do it in a more efficient way. But as we move down to operating income, we were over budget 160, almost 8 compared to 118, and we're over budget for the year. Operating expenses are over budget by 70,000 year to date, but purchase power has been over budget by 109,000. So really, all other operating expenses have been under budget by a combined total of 39,000. So the things we can control, we're doing great, and we are over budget on sales. So you're going to be over budget on purchase power most likely because you're just selling more. That means you're buying more. Net income, year to date, we're at 295 compared to a budget of 205. So once again, in a healthy position to fund projects through normal cash flows. Onto the capital project documents. Really spend the time on the summary page, which is the horizontal page. In the last month, we spent $74,000 on the Siemens turbine, $10,000 on system upgrades, $36,000 on the AMI project. And you'll see that we're actually $10,399.08 over budget as it stands today on the AMI project. The budget for the project was $525. We're at $535,399. I do expect this $10,399.08 to actually decrease, so we're not over budget. We have a number of meters we didn't install that got capitalized that are going to go back into inventory, and that will flow through our capital equipment because it's not part of the project anymore, it's just meters on hand. So there's at least 80-some meters or more that were capitalized because we capitalized the entire thing that are going to flow through the equipment. In addition, $27,000 of the $535 that we've spent has been labor. And I believe if we look back at the minutes, which I did, the board approved $525,000 between Eaton Cooper and the Dell purchases. So from actual outside services and equipment, we approved $525, and I believe we're right around $508. And the payroll labor, again, didn't hit our income statement. It's just hitting here, and those are dollars the board and Light and Power would have paid regardless if they were putting up lines or sweeping the warehouse or working on this project. So again, I don't expect that 10. We should come in right on budget on this. And then in
Is the exit meters because of more people opt out than what you
correct.
thought?
Yes, that's exactly it. We had just under 3% opt out, and the majority of which opted out after a letter to the editor.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Sorry.
But that's the way it goes.
Yep.
What was the demographics?
In terms of the opt-out?
Yeah.
Julie, what would you say? There were definitely some elderly folk that just didn't feel they needed it, didn't understand that we could go through normal operations. You could get your bill as normal, you didn't have to do anything, they just didn't want it, or were concerned about health. Well,
They just wanted to stay same.
status quo.
Yeah, they wanted to stay
The
same.
one thing we did do, and some people, we communicated it effectively, I don't know if they understood. We have a lot of old meters in this town, dial-faced, mechanical meters, 30, 40 years old, maybe even 50. There's a new digital focus meter, it's not AMI, but it just shows digits. We know it's a newer meter, we know it's 100% accurate. We did let people know that if they had an older mechanical dial-face type meter, Low Light and Power will either be having AMI meters in our inventory or these focused digital meters. And everybody did receive a digital focus meter that opted out. It's not AMI, there's no radio. We explained that, but some people were hesitant or frustrated that we do this, but we explained that we do own the meter. You know, this is completely our right. We're not changing the technology, and, you know, just due to simplicity, it makes more sense for us to either keep a focus meter in stock or this AMI meter in stock. And overall, I think things went well, and it'll make meters easier to read for Nancy, who's still going to be reading those meters for us. But I don't think people gripe too much, maybe a couple. What would you say, Ryan?
Yeah, maybe a couple.
That's the way it goes.
I think, when we get down to AMI, I think part of the concern with some people in talking to them was, whether it's right or wrong, they felt that if they had a concern that putting a new meter in would show that the old meter wasn't working correctly, and they'd be charged for more power than what the old meter was.
We had those questions, and we said, regardless, we're still going to be putting in this new focus meter. Legally, this meter cannot read more than you're using. So we're not going to be, you know, just like a gas pump can't charge you more gas
Well,
than,
what,
But we're not
the fear
we're not
was,
backcharging.
the fear was,
their bill was going to go up.
what the fear was, maybe the old meter wasn't working correctly and I was getting free energy.
Right. Which then they're being
is-
illegally subsidized
Right.
by other people, you know what I mean? I understand, and you know, it's just,
But that's just not the way.
right, it's
the
not
way
the
to
way
get here.
Light and Power can operate,
Yeah.
Right.
by giving people free power, essentially is what it is. So
Now
we,
we have a focus meter that is accurate.
right,
Mhm.
yep.
And we're not like back charging for.
Nope,
or-
not back charging
It's just-
from here on
yeah, we
forward,
just improved our equipment to make sure we can have an accurate number and.
correct. But for the year, still $582,000 remaining. I will put the formal analysis together now that our audit's complete to make sure we fully funded our capital budget of last year, because we did carry money over from fiscal year 2016 into this year's capital budget. I am confident, though, that we did meet our needs for cash flow for last year, but I'll present that. And if there were to be a difference, I would lower the amount we carried over next month.
Okay.
Any questions thus far?
So what was the impact you mentioned again about those extra AD meters that?
So right now, the way it worked, we got invoices from Eaton Cooper for all the meters, and we said, okay, it's part of the project. And we're gonna capitalize them, and we're gonna start depreciating, and once the project's done, it flows through to our fixed assets and it starts depreciating, like they're in service being used. If meters are in our shop, sitting there, and maybe we'll sit there for 3 years, they shouldn't be depreciated, because we used our the goal is with this, now that we have all new meters, we're gonna actually have individual line items for each meter. And in the future, we'll be able to say, okay, this meter's reached the end of its useful life, or it's depreciating at this rate, we should put money away to eventually replace this meter. So meters that aren't installed they're gonna be considered an inventory item that'll flow through the capital equipment purchase. Does that make sense?
Okay, but there's two separate capital items you're saying, because you've got the AMI project one and there's the capital equipment.
Yes.
So these extra meters are now going to be transferred to the capital equipment.
Right.
Okay. And are we gonna need 80 spare meters?
Well, we do have 80 customers that opted out, that
They
if
could
they
have
ever
back in.
moved, or God forbid, they pass away, or whatever, we will need those meters.
Mhm. Okay.
So when you're looking at,
So-
well, go ahead, Andrew.
I guess just where I was going, but it sounds like there's really a negligible impact. It's just more of an accounting
Correct.
line item. But my concern was just that when you mentioned that most of that happened after the letter to the editor, it's like, gosh, so there's like a, multi-thousand-dollar impact because of somebody writing one mostly inaccurate letter. And
Right,
it's just how I was kind of thinking, it's kind of unfortunate that that's kind of how
I would agree.
things work sometimes. But it sounds like in this case, it's really just more of an allocation in the budget. And it's not like allocating it to which different,
Right, if we had known
Project,
ahead of
it's not
time, we would have
gonna be a
never
big-
ordered those.
yeah.
You know what I mean? We wouldn't have.
But in the long term, it's really not gonna.
I think it's always good to have spare meters regardless, because
Right.
equipment can go bad. I mean, there's a warranty on these. We talked to the vendor today. They think they'll last 12 to 15 years, if not longer, but who knows? It's still good to have someone spare.
Yep,
But it's
okay.
more of an accounting function, because yes, we did buy them for this project, but how it worked out, they're not for the project anymore.
Okay.
It's almost like, if we need a meter in the future if Greg Canfield's Canfield Plumbing had a special meter, we want to make sure we have one of each meter as a backup, and all those special meter orders are going to flow through the capital equipment purchases, just like poles or transformers would.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
When you set your timeframe for replacing, since we replace all the meters within a 2-week period, and the meters are good for 10 years, how do you go ahead and put your plan together to replace those if the life expectancy, as an example, is 10 years? I can understand if you did 50 today and 1 year and 1 year, and then you put that over a 5-year that I'm going to replace the meters, but when they're all at the life expectancy at the same time, not that all will fail, but how does that go into your plan of thought when you just mentioned that we're going to set
Well, we have a
aside-
long-range projection that we'll get into probably February-ish,
Okay.
but normally, like, specific capital plans are developed over the course of 5 years, so we wouldn't have to plan on it right now.
Right.
But I would plan on, yep, all these meters will potentially have to be changed within 1 to 2 years,
Mhm.
and plan accordingly. And luckily, we are small enough where we can make that happen and fund it as such. But that would be my plan, like, we have to expect that a lot of these,
Mhm.
and really it trues up. I mean, whether you spend $50,000 a year over 10 years or $500,000 in a year over time,
Mhm.
you just have
Yeah.
$50,000 more dollars every year before that to spend on other projects that you need in the
Yes.
system.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just as long
So
as
it
you plan
trues
for it,
up,
so.
but we're gonna have to
Mhm.
plan accordingly when it comes
Okay.
time.
I'll
I mean-
look for it in February.
I'm surprised that the life expectancy of those meters would only be around 10 years.
I don't know,
I
I
mean,
only use that as an example. I
They
don't know.
believe they'll still work, but for depreciation purposes, I'm gonna depreciate them over 12 to 15 years. Like we have poles that are fully depreciated, but they're still standing, but that doesn't
We have-
mean it's
I
fully
mean,
effective or
I'm
it's
sure
not
we have-
rotted.
I'm sure we have meters in houses that are 30, 40, 50 years old.
I think they'll work. But, I mean, just like the mechanical, maybe, I don't know if an electronic meter can slow down or if they'll just eventually just, on average, start going bad at 15 years because they're made electronically. Unfortunately, the payback for this project was in 3 years, so, I mean, in theory, it's a good business case if it only lasted 4 years.
Well, the technology hasn't been out that long yet to really determine how long they're gonna last at this point.
Yeah, I mean, people have had meters since
Have they?
'05,
Mhm.
at least, so, I mean, it's going on 10, 11 years.
Okay.
And when I attended an APPA conference, there was a I think his name was John, small town in Iowa. They had them for over 10 years, same meters, and they were
Okay.
still running fine.
Awesome.
So,
So when you're saying that they're a 10-year expectancy, that's just what you chose to depreciate them over?
right, I
12
mean,
to 15, you said?
yeah,
Or?
I think I'm gonna get with Megan and Julie, because I
Okay, so,
mean,
but we haven't decided, but it's going to be on that order.
the one thing you don't want is to like give an artificially low number, or like say it's like over 40 years, and then
Yeah, because then
they
you're
go
still
bad,
paying
then you
for
take
it.
this huge write-off, and then you don't have an accurate picture. I'd rather be a little bit conservative
Mhm.
and plan for replacing them and financially plan accordingly.
Right,
You know what I mean?
yeah. So did they say what their actual expectancy was? Or, like, so when, does Eden Cooper say, well, we expect them to last 30 years, but we're only going to guarantee 10, or are they saying we expect 10, 15 years? I guess I'm just trying to,
I don't think Steve gave a straight answer. He said he wouldn't be surprised over
They not even
15
know.
years today.
okay. So
I think they could work over
so
15
it's-
years.
We're planning on like 10 to 15 years, and it might be 20, 25. I mean, they're
Right,
relatively simple, so it's not,
right.
wouldn't have surprised me if they were longer than that.
Yeah, it's really speculation
Yeah.
at this point. Well, time will tell.
Mhm.
They're still working today, as they should.
Yeah.
Alrighty, on to the manager's report. MPPA, I've included a hedge plan in your packet. It was included right after the manager's report. It was a fairly lengthy document. It was probably 10 total pages, front, back. And I just wanted to go over this. I do get a quarterly hedge plan from the MPPA, and the reason this is special is because this hedge plan actually recommends the purchase of energy through a bilateral purchase for actually the year, I believe, like 2021, 5 years into the future. So just, I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because this would take a while. I just wanted a few highlights through the report that I just wanted to point out. On the second page, under renewable energy, it said Lowell received renewable energy through the landfill project, and they talk about the biodigester, but 12% of our load when this report was written was through renewable sources. So I just thought that was a cool fact to point out, and, we're meeting our 10% obligation. Doesn't have to do anything with energy purchases, but I just wanted to point it out. Third page, Lowell has seen more load than forecast, and we're 1.1% over forecast at the time this was written. And Peter had talked about increasing sales. Actually, this isn't the norm necessarily with all utilities in today's society with energy optimization and just companies moving state or, leaving the country for reasons. It's not always the norm to see increased sales, but we have been fortunate in that there are major industrial and commercial customers that have expanded in town, which allows us to spread our overhead over more kilowatt hours. So I thought that was something noteworthy that we have seen increased sales, which is a great thing.
It's not necessarily sales per se, it's actually load, right? So they're actually talking about the amount of kilowatt hours being consumed, not the price being paid for.
No, yeah, I mean like sales of kilowatt hours.
Right, so it's
Not
not because
like
cost of
dollars.
energy's gone up. it's
Correct.
because-
Yeah, I mean,
right?
like when I say,
Okay.
yeah, I'm sorry. When I say
Just wondering.
sales, like kilowatt hour sales.
Okay.
Yep,
So that's the reason, though, that the load has gone up is because of new businesses?
right. Yeah, I mean, really, Greg getting Atwood was huge. King Millings expansion was huge. I mean, Lighthouse is expanding. Root Lowell brought a lot of operations from Iowa
Mhm.
to Lowell. Even places like the retirement home on M21 and things like that are huge. I mean, for a
Okay.
community our size, to our growth.
The new plant back behind the
Oh,
bus
yeah.
garage.
Mhm. Yeah.
Envision, yep. So that's huge. But those are just a couple cool facts.
That's good kind of growth, basically. It's real growth, not just,
Yeah, it's not just we're increasing rates, and that's why
Yeah.
our sales dollars are going up. Our actual kilowatt hour sales are going up.
okay.
What was I gonna? Page 4, just want to go over the hedge policy that is presented tonight. So under the current position, it says Lowell has chosen MPPA's stability hedge plan as a guide to determine future purchases. And this report, in the second paragraph, concentrates on long-term hedges to put members' energy positions into compliance over the next 5 years. So that's really what this report is designed to do. Really, all members of MPPA use this hedge plan as a service, so it's not like we're special, we're the only ones who have elected it. This is a service they perform because they handle our power supply. And their recommendation here on page 4 is Lowell's level of price certainty is below the hedge plan range in some years. Analysis shows that the indicated shortfall will be made up when fuel is purchased for existing plants and additional price certainty will materialize. Recommended hedges prevent overpurchasing of market products that will result in overhead situations once fuel is acquired. Therefore, MPPA makes the following recommendations for energy purchases. And as you can see on page 5, if you go to the 2021 column, halfway down under the Lowell line item, you'll see that the MPPA is recommending Lowell Light and Power to purchase 0.3 megawatts of baseload generation. And how do they determine this? And they talk about it in the first couple pages. If we flip over to, I believe it's page 18 and 19, it's the last page that I included of the hedge plan. Page 18 shows that in 2021, we're going to be at 16% price certainty on power costs, and with a purchase of 0.3 megawatts of base load power, on page 19, we'll be up to 20% certainty. Does everybody see that? Under 2021, so we're going within that shaded region. And you might be wondering, well, why aren't we making purchases in 2018, 2019, and 2020 so that we are in the shaded region? Brent Henry, who takes care of this report, alluded to that fact. Under his recommendation, it says, analysis shows that the indicated shortfall will be made up when fuel is purchased for existing plants. So they already know that we have that energy available. It's just the price isn't certain because that fuel hasn't been purchased. Does that make sense? So for a lot of our coal plants, the coal just hasn't been purchased in these years, but once it is, we will be in compliance. So through their analysis, they said, okay, every year but 2021 will be in compliance through the purchase of fuel, except 2021 where you actually need to purchase actual energy.
So why wasn't the purchase of fuel taken into account?
In 2021,
Or in all 5 of them, I guess, I mean,
well, they don't know what it's going to be yet.
okay, but then how do they know that like our position in 2020 is not properly hedged, I guess?
No, they know that we have enough energy in those years.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the price certainty is still to be determined. They know that we have existing we know we're entitled for X number of megawatts through Campbell,
Mm-hmm.
X, Y number of megawatts through Bell River, Z number of megawatts through Kalkaska. So the price certainty, we're not in the hedged amount yet, but there's nothing we can do with that yet.
Oh,
But
so
we
it's
have
just-
enough energy. They have determined that.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
We just don't know what it's gonna cost us.
Correct.
Except in 2021 where we're
We're
a little
actually
bit
do
short.
not have enough energy.
Okay, so that's more of a load.
Correct.
Or energy supply.
So this is
study.
kind of like two ideas.
So that's kind of
overlapping
showing
into
2
one.
things, but we only really care about one of them.
Correct.
Okay, and it's just because they didn't separate it out, we can't see the difference, so.
Correct.
Okay.
And I did confirm, I have an email from Brent, because I had those similar questions, and I can forward it to you. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but he says
Okay.
pretty much the same thing. So really, it's so immaterial, this 0.3 megawatts, I mean, compared to, we're using on the average hour here in Lowell is between 8 and 9, our peak's 15. This is the smallest of purchases, but I thought it would be a good time to pull out this hedge policy to say that people are looking at the expected load and price for Lowell Light and Power into the future. I review these, make sure I understand them, and that's how we make decisions for our power supply. So I am going to be signing, and I did talk with Dick Wendt. A purchase like this does not have to have action from the board. The same way as if tomorrow it happened to be 100 degrees and we had to buy a bunch of power off the market, we don't come to the board to say, hey, we need all this power. It just happens. This is power that we need to serve the customer. We don't have it, and it's not like we're going to be selling it back into the market, so this is a normal transaction that staff can make. I just wanted to bring this report to your attention.
Steve, at the end of the year, do you give like I'm fairly new to the board, do you give like a state of what that 5-year energy plan looks like for the United States overall, as you hear more about coal plants closing down and all that stuff, and what does that really look like from a standpoint?
I haven't. It's something that's talked about a lot.
I know.
At MPPA and MMEA. It's just such a moving target that even like general managers still don't know because so much of it swings on the EPA and who's going to be elected president and who's going to be the new Supreme Court, justices. I can give you what the latest of today is. I mean, we know if Donald Trump's president, coal plants will most likely stick around longer. If they aren't, it's going to be renewable energy.
Okay.
A couple other slides that don't pertain to this energy purchase, but page 15 and 16, they show where our megawatt hours come from and where our power supply costs come from. And you'll see that 18% of our energy was off the MISO LMP. That's just the market. And only 8% of our cost came from that source. So that's a really good deal for us. Does everybody kind of understand that? The same thing goes with bilaterals. We got 14% of our load on page 15 from bilateral contracts. Only 8% of our actual power costs came from bilaterals. On the other end, Bell River supplied 20% of our load, but it was 22% of our cost. Campbell was 32% of our load, 35% of our cost. And you'll see one of the biggest disparities in renewables. 17% of our cost comes from renewables, but it only supplies 12% of our energy. But really, this is just confirming probably what we all know. Coal and renewables have become more expensive, so we're getting less bang for our buck, where the market's been cheap. So we are getting bang for our buck.
Yeah.
But this is just graphically showing that picture is what we think. Does that make sense?
And that's just the low price of natural gas mainly?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So, because 2 years ago, it would have been a different picture, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Because
since I've been here, coal's gone from maybe low 4 cents per kilowatt hour to 6.5. So you're talking over a 50% increase in the price per kilowatt that we buy in coal compared to when, just 2010.
Right.
It's just extraordinary.
But wasn't it a couple of years ago that the market price got really, because of the hot summer, or the cold winter, it
Yes.
got really,
Right, you're right.
the market, so this.
We were
MISO
actually
would have
buying
been-
power for more than we were selling it.
Right.
Bad
So
deal.
then the MISO wedge would have been much smaller in terms of the,
Correct.
or the ratio would be the other way around, so.
Yes.
Okay.
And I probably could dig up that old hedge plan and it would show just that. Anyway,
Part of the challenge.
we got a full manager's report yet, but I just wanted to show, what the hedge plan was and how it's used, and if you have any questions, we can talk
What's
after
the
the meeting.
rough scope of this bilateral agreement? This bilateral you're talking about will just be for, plan would be for that 0.3 megawatts,
0.3 megawatts.
just for 1 year? in the
Correct.
future?
Yep. I believe it's actually a 16-hour block during the peak hours of the day.
Okay.
What's that, Perry? Nothing. Sorry. Okay, we're going on.
Okay.
Next one. Second paragraph, the CT Project Committee had a conference call to discuss 5 O&M proposals for the future of the Kalkaska combustion turbine. We're part owners in that, along with Traverse City, Harbor Springs, Petoskey, the other, I think Charlevoix, Eaton Rapids. Anyway, Traverse City's been operating that plant since inception. Currently, it does not take their staff 40 hours a week to operate that. And those people that operate it, they really don't need for other things. So they're at a point like, these people are ready to retire. We don't need to hire new staff just to operate this. They gave notice to the MPPA and all members that we're gonna get out of this business. We got a bunch of different O&M proposals back from like third parties. They were very expensive. So Traverse City said, okay, we'll come up with our own proposal, assuming we have to hire full-time people and we'll charge people fairly for it. And the increase to this was 194%, just in the O&M portion, couple $1,000s a month to low light and power. So that'll be our effect. The committee unanimously approved it, and I just wanted to let you know that cost for the combustion turbine starting in January could go up because of this. Croswell was added as a new associate member yesterday at the MPPA meeting, so this is good. They're not a full member. They could explore becoming a full member in the coming months, but this is always good to have increased membership. It splits our dues over more people. Later this month, I'll be visiting the Campbell 3 plant in West Olive on the 24th of October. It's a annual fall meeting that they have. We have a spring meeting at MPPA, fall meetings at the plant, and then actually later that week, I'll be heading to the east side of the state for the Bell River fall meeting. I've never toured either plant, so I'm pretty excited to see them. And I'm actually chair of the Campbell 3 committee, so it'll be a good experience for me to be there. MMEA, on the 15th of September, we had an all-day strategic planning session where we had input from all members of how we should go forward with MMEA, what services we should or shouldn't be offering. Are there things that could be done differently? Are there threats or opportunities or risks for the future of public power? And it was a great meeting. That plan was finalized on the Friday of the MMEA conference. I have emailed that plan to all of you. This will give you time to read it, and if you have any questions, please get with me. The conference that I attended from the 5th through the 7th was the highest attended MMEA conference in its history. Jim and Tina were able to join that Wednesday. It was a full conference. There was obviously financial metric classes. They had cybersecurity, a presentation about cybersecurity. They had talks about the Clean Power Plan, resource adequacy, the election, natural gas, a whole gamut of topics that really at a high level, but it was a great conference.
How was the tour of the Holland new facility?
It was awesome. It's state-of-the-art, $240 million facility, really impressive. They spent a year to year and a half just public forums, sessions, engaging the public, but it was really impressive, and it will be online early next year or spring, somewhere around there. It was really cool. Biodigester under system generation upgrade process or progress, really nothing new. I believe everyone here is up to speed, and this has been discussed at length. Really, it's just a waiting game till November 1st. You've all received copies of the final plan in your email, so if you have any questions about that final plan, just give me a shout. What?
How much further are they? I mean, the last one we were over there at the
I haven't been there this.
October meeting.
I haven't been there this
Is the roof
week.
system on and stuff? Is it enclosed?
I would say 2/3 of it is enclosed.
You did say, Steve, earlier that complaints are way down, though.
They are.
So that's good news then.
People, which I don't have a problem with, they weren't shy about emailing me, which was 100% fine, but that has dropped off significantly to the point where I haven't received an email probably in the last 2 weeks. So, Ryan indicated it still definitely smells inside the building, although I do believe it's improved outside the building. Well, I think so. Anyway,
Certain days.
it's all relative. What?
Certain days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all relative. What?
Yeah,
Depends on the wind.
Has to be fixed in 18 more, so. Siemens combustion turbine, and this will probably take a few minutes. So for the last 3 or 4 months, I had indicated that all plans and expectations are that the turbine would be ready by September 30th, and up until mid-September, Barney thought that would happen. The last week of September, there was some work that had to be done, and in terms of relay settings, fiber connections for direct transfer trip setup, software communication, and more. And on September 28th, that Wednesday, after talking with OnPower and some engineers, I just made the decision that, if these things weren't done, we're posing a risk to potentially our substation, the circuit, our combustion turbine, and yes, there's capacity credit hanging out there in June, but this is an expensive asset. We're not going to do anything to put anyone or any equipment at harm. So under their recommendation, made the decision that we probably won't be able to have it running by September 30th. I did reach out to consumers, and I said, hey, this is our situation. We know we can only run through September 30th. What can be done? They said, okay, we'll go to our system planning. They got with their system planning. They determined that, okay, there may be the possibility to run in October. It won't be a precedent. This is just for the commissioning, because the actual commissioning I mean, there's testing, but the actual test run that needs to take place for the MPPA needs to be 1 hour. Explained this to them, they said, okay. Since that time, through further investigation, and okay, we're gonna try to make this thing happen, it was determined that the 5,000 kVA transformer on site, the primary side should have been 12,470, but it was built backwards, 13.2. 13.2 was the side going into our building, the generator side. Now hindsight would say, could we have seen this? Maybe. There's so many moving variables and targets. We did check some paperwork and the voltages were correct. It was just the transformer was just built backwards. And what does this mean? Really, this was a showstopper. We can't proceed without this transformer being correct. We did go back. We did tell Solomon to build it with 13.2 on the primary side, 12.47 on the secondary side. We got with Solomon, normally to build a transformer like this could take 16, 20, 24 weeks. They've agreed to have the transformer back to us fixed by next week on their dime. So that is happening, and that's a major piece that's needed for us to be able to run the turbine. There's still some other engineering work that has to be done. Western Telecom will be on site hopefully early next week. GRP will be on site early next week. The last component would be Newkirk/Theta, entering some relay settings, doing some function testing, and some other verification and giving their sign off that we're good to go. If all that can happen, there's still the potential for us to test and commission the combustion turbine this year, which really it's that's what our goal was. I did talk with Consumers Energy today. They believe that we'll have the gas through next Sunday to test and commission, so that's going to be staff's goal and target to have it done. We'll see. We need Newkirk and Theta to play ball. They're pretty busy. If we can't get them to do the work, we're going to have to get a hold of some other generation company to have them do the relay settings or whatever have you so that we can commission. So that's really where
So
we...
what's the downfall if we don't commission till spring?
The downfall is we can't register the unit in the capacity market for June 1, 2017 through May 31st, 2018.
So we don't get those credits?
We don't get the capacity credit. Now, I'm not going to risk running and commissioning that turbine if it provides, if we are all of a sudden determined to be negligent or we damage the substation or a major transformer or the generating equipment, that's not worth it, and it's just not proper, and it's not right. So we're going to make sure that we have everything lined up. But really, it's just the risk of losing that capacity credit, which we'll learn the value of that next year. That price still hasn't been determined. Now, the project thus far, reached out to Brent Henry months and months ago. The combustion turbine on average should cost between $700 and $900 a kW to build. This is coming in significantly cheaper. We're doing this project 50 to 55 cents on the dollar. So, we could have hired a contractor and it probably would have been done by September 30th, but we would have paid a heck of a lot more money. So there's cost benefits, and that's something that staff's weighed, and this is the route that we've chosen to go. And it's our hope and goal to still have it commissioned this month. Do you have anything else to say, Barney?
Oh, we're moving in that direction.
Is that credits like in the tens of thousands?
Yeah, it is in the tens of thousands. It's a good chunk of change. Yeah, so, we understand it's a high priority, and, yeah, we just need to get it done, is what it comes down to. Safely, correct. Yeah, we're not gonna,
Blowing up the turbine wouldn't.
No, and then it
It'll cost
defeats
you
it.
more in the long run.
And we're gonna have that capacity credit, once it's up, that year on forever until that turbine has to be decommissioned, so I don't wanna be short-sighted and say, oh, we need it just for this year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, it's a balancing act. And as a percentage of our total expenses, the capacity credit is very, very small. But I don't want to dismiss the fact that it's still tens of thousands of dollars, and that's real money that you can do real things with.
Yeah.
But it's not like we'll have to increase rates or, You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, many ways to look at it, but in perspective, it is a small expense, but it's still something that if we can obtain, we're going to shoot for sure. Does that make sense?
Mhm. So would it be an option to have so if consumers can't provide the gas past a certain
I know where you're
date,
going. I thought about this.
what, storing it somewhere and?
Yeah, bring in a truck and run
Right.
it that way. And I would explore, I mean, in theory, if that option costs less than the credit
Mhm.
that we're going to get, yeah, I might go over budget on the project, but if my credit in the future is worth more, why not do it? It's just,
Mhm.
it's just common sense.
Okay.
But that's something where I'd keep everyone updated. I would let you know if it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to spend 50 grand to do something like that, but I know I'm gonna get 100,000 in capacity credit. We'd have a special meeting, but, if we can put hard numbers to paper and show that it's gonna pay for itself, it seems like a good deal then, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, if you've thought about it, then that's just.
I knew where you were going.
Because I was thinking, if you only have to run for an hour, that's not a huge volume, but.
But, yeah, we've
But
spent a
still,
lot of time on this,
something,
and, yeah. Anything you wanna add, Barney?
Oh, I think you covered it.
Don't you think Theka Newkirk is probably the X factor at this point?
Right. If they want to play the game and be here and set it up.
I don't know why they want. I talked with our engineer from GRP. They're not sure why. We didn't use them for the engineering of the turbine, but we're asking them, hey, for this scope of work, can you do it? We're willing to pay you for it. I think it's fair, so we'll see.
Mhm. And I guess just with regards to that transformer, you're saying that there's something we could have done, but on the other hand, it's not, I don't know that we would expect to have to test every part we receive when we had a spec and they send it to us built to spec.
Right.
Right,
You would think a transformer that I think we paid probably $80,000, $90,000 for
Yeah,
would be
but
built
how-
correctly when we gave them the right specs of how it should have been wired on the primary and secondary side. But hindsight's 20/20 too. We
Yeah.
do deal with transformers more than other types of equipment that we receive, so it's easy to look back and say, should we have caught that? I'm not sure. From here on out, I guess we probably will.
Okay, but yeah, it's just, I kind of see it as their QA department should have caught that. And if you're sending out a product, you're not gonna, at scale, you're not gonna not check it. And somehow it didn't get checked, but it's not, I don't feel like we really need to be checking everything we receive to make sure it's not wired backwards and any other millions of things that could be installed wrong on them.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to beat anybody up here.
So, yeah.
That it happened. Just the fact that they're willing to completely redo it on their dime in 2 weeks
Yep.
shows that they've accepted complete responsibility and acknowledge it's their fault.
Mhm. Okay, just want to make that
You know what I
clear.
mean? Like,
I
yeah.
didn't see that, as you had mentioned, was there something we could have done? It's like, well, I don't really think there really is something we should have
Right.
done. We're not going to spend all of our time checking stuff we order.
Right.
That's, if we order something, it's,
Right.
we're kind of expecting it to be.
So that's still be determined. As things progress, I will keep the board updated via email. Sound good?
That sounds like you've had a really interesting couple of weeks, huh?
Oh, yeah.
And Ryan,
Exciting.
yeah, the whole distribution staff has really helped out. Ryan, Mark, Rich, Justin. So it's been a whole team effort with Barney.
Just to add one thing to that, so that it doesn't happen again, do we have any policies or procedures in place that may make us look at it a little bit harder in the future? It's not like we're buying $90,000 transformers or whatever the cost was all the time, but going forward, just to make sure, just so we don't. We can policy and procedure ourselves to death at time too, and it might take more time than really what it was worth, but just, I don't know what we have in place today.
That'll have to be an
From
internal.
operational standpoint, but.
Yeah, Barney and Ryan and I will have to have an internal discussion about how we move forward and how we do that so we can prevent mistakes that manufacturers made.
Yeah,
vendors.
We
There's
deal with
probably
them
not
all
a
the
whole lot
time.
you can do.
That's-
but-
What?
There's probably not a whole lot because there's more than
No.
just the wiring of it that can go wrong or could be installed wrong that would be a latent defect you wouldn't even notice.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's partly why we do the whole testing phase that we were part of where we found this in the first place. Which
Right.
it sounds like you guys were running system checks and getting prepared to
Yep.
do everything, and that's when you found it. And I mean, this is not a fun time to find things. You know, I just from my own projects I work on at work.
Right, if we had
you don't
natural
like
gas
all these
supply, I mean, it wouldn't be a
problems
big
with
deal.
that when you're
Yeah.
trying to deliver something, but sometimes you
Right.
find something at the last minute.
And it was better to find it when we did find it, rather than energize it and then find it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
seems like that could have been
Yeah.
a problem.
Okay.
Then it might have been on us after we
Yeah.
energized it.
Let the smoke out.
Right. All right, 5-year plan. The material is shipped. We plan to start the project late October, early November, and work on this project throughout the winter. So just an update that we did order the material per the board approval a number of months ago. Other system projects, SCADA system is up and bringing back information, and really it's just function testing what information we're getting back. So that capital project is pretty much done. Long-term natural gas supply. At the MMEA conference, I had a meeting with Tim Sparks, the Vice President of Consumers Energy, Pat Bolin and Jim Weeks and Greg Pierce, and we articulated the lack of natural gas that we do have here in Lowell. Tim is at such a high level that, you know, he doesn't know every single thing about their whole distribution system, but we did make him aware of our situation, so if it gets elevated to his level, he's aware of it, he knows who we are, we made contact with him. But the good news is I received a call from my point of contact within this same time frame, Dave Zoki. He's the local agent that I've been communicating with since March, and he let me know that due to increased customer demand in the Lowell Caledonia area, that they're going to be bringing to their board a project that would upgrade natural gas infrastructure in this area that would allow us to run 24/7, 365. And we have a conference call scheduled for the second week of December, where he'll give me the result of that board meeting, if it's a go or not a go, and if it is a go, a timeline, which he said, quote, we want it to happen sooner than later, because I asked him, is it 2018, 2019? He said, we would like it to happen sooner than later, but who knows how it'll all fare it out. And we'll determine the cost of that. I mean, there probably will still be a cost of a lateral, but, you know, we talked about $1.5 million for this line extended to run 9 months a year. We talked about, you know, a cavern, and so I'm holding off. I do have a contact, and I had a conference call scheduled actually with a cavern storage engineer from Traverse City. And Dave knows that we're exploring that option. He's like, before you start paying them money, this is an actual solution that could happen. We don't want you to invest in this cavern storage engineer if you're gonna have a full-time solution that we're gonna be able to provide you. So, that was potentially breakthrough news, but we'll see. But he was pretty eager to tell me. He's like, he emailed me, call me right now. So, standby generator and compressor options, nothing new at this time, and really, the compressor relates to item C that I just discussed. We're just gonna have to play a waiting game, and I do plan to meet with Greg Pratt before the end of the year for a standby generator that we hope to purchase by spring. Solar project with the school, nothing new at this time. AMI project, staff completed all the AMI installations we expected to as of September 23rd. And as of today, Eaton Cooper was on site yesterday and today for staff training, creation of reports, how to use the field tool, how to diagnose and analyze and fix problems out in the field. All meters are reporting into our system. All the meters that we had installed were used for our billing at the end of September.
I'm sorry.
Go for it, go for it.
So who's being trained on that?
Customers,
Everyone?
all customer service were part of maybe a 2 to 3 hour training session. Sharon, Julie, Gail, Megan, Nicole, in terms of, I mean, I wasn't actually participating in their training, but I imagine you learned how to take a read, find different information, look up an address, identify a meter, see if there's an outage.
Run reports.
Our guy, like Ryan and myself, I mean, we generated reports today where we can actually get, every day we'll now have a daily outage report for the previous day. It'll show what meter was out tied to an address, when it went out, to the second, how many seconds it was out. Email alerts will be set up for all of the distribution staff. For when there is an outage, they'll get an email, so they'll actually know the address and the meters that are out. That'll happen. We have reports about voltages, where we can now see the voltages at different customers and tweak and tinker different things like cap bank sets or whatever. The possibilities are really endless. I mean, how many reports do you think we could run? A couple hundred? Would
Yeah.
Yes.
Hundreds with data that we've never had. It's almost like information overload, so we just gotta pick and choose like the low-hanging fruit and where we can get bang for our buck. I mean, really making equipment decisions on transformer sizing, where we can place cap bank sets for voltage issues. There's also now the ability for us to install equipment on our system that can be, it changes automatically for what's happening in our system. Like if it gets hotter or if things happen at our substation, this equipment can read that and make changes on our lines automatically. And there will be actually dollar cost savings for doing this. So that's like a second phase of AMI. But really the project went, what's that?
No, I'm gonna have a question.
The project went great. It was done in just under 3 calendar weeks. It was the quickest Eaton Cooper's ever seen. We had, most days, 4 teams of 2 out and about. We took pictures like we said we were going to of every single meter, which helped a lot. We went through and actually double-checked each picture to what was entered in the spreadsheet to make sure what we did entered and wrote down was correct. We hung tags at every door. The SUS platform will be coming out in November. The group's actually coming from California, October 24th, and we'll be on site 3 days where they'll have training, and we go through tons of different testing to make sure when we finally release the app and the platform that it's bulletproof and we don't have errors or people have problems logging in or creating an account. We just don't want to give that impression. I had said it was going to be November 3rd. We pushed it back a week just due to the MMA conference and different things that have been going on. So November 10th is the target date, and we will have a bill stuffer out to market this extensively.
Besides my house, have you guys seen any huge increases or something out of the ordinary since you went from the smart meters to what they are?
You've
A slight
experienced a big increase?
Small increase, oh yeah.
Really?
Well, it has to do with consumption at the house, but yeah. No, I'm just wondering how does that look? I know the data's early, we're only into 2 to 3 weeks, but, if my bill was $120 last month, I'm using the same, is you see any big differences in what people are being charged for? Maybe we don't have enough data.
I don't
yet.
think we have enough data.
Okay.
I mean, we were
All right.
just on site today to start developing. I mean, this platform is pretty, I would say, involved in terms of how you create reports. It's not like, oh, just here and you got your report. It's pretty
You have to create your own report.
tricky,
Okay.
but it's pretty powerful.
Well, all of a sudden, my bills have been running 80 as an example, and all of a sudden I'm looking at 120. You as low-line power would think, what is the difference? Why is Jim now going from this to that? And you can deal with that individual homeowner versus
Well, it
that.
did get colder too.
What's
It
that?
did get colder, right?
And
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Yeah, no, so
I'll
just
wait
kinda
for the
wondering.
data, but I'm just
Yeah.
using some examples. No, my bill hasn't gone up.
Oh, okay. I thought you
No,
actually
no,
did. I was like,
no,
your bill that you received at the end of September was mostly your old meter,
No,
so.
yes, no, I was just using that example. It seemed to go up anyways, but no.
It's like,
No,
whoa, it's
not true.
50%,
No, I was
yeah.
just giving an example, sorry.
I did hear that the teams had an unfair, one team had an unfair advantage having Nancy on their team.
Nancy is,
She knew where every
she
meter
could
was.
enter Guinness records for her speed. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and being retired
Right.
postal worker that knows where,
Yes.
And reading the meters, she knew where all the meters were.
Right, on the.
And Nancy
In the
will still be
house,
on,
inside the
Nancy
house.
will be reading the meters of the people who have opted out. And she will be hanging tags, so our linemen are completely out of the game.
Wow.
We had 80 people roughly that opted out. We have a number of A-bottom accounts that we've actually been addressing in the last number of days. There are, when we first made the meter order, I think December or January-ish, it was the current customers then. It's changed since then, so there are meters we just didn't have during the initial order, so we'll have to order in the coming months, but for the most part, we're gonna be down to around 80 in the next couple months.
So, the A bottom, so, what's involved?
Ryan determined that there's actually only potentially 2, 3, or 4 that will need a service upgrade. And we are gonna go 50/50 with the customer if they so choose to upgrade to replace the A-bottom service and upgrade it through an electrician. Am I correct in that, Ryan?
Yeah. And it all boiled down to the condition of the wire going into the old meter. If it was just dangerous and cracked insulation and it just wasn't gonna be safe to put it into the new adapter, we'll just make the call at that point and the customer's gonna have to do an upgrade.
And we did have one customer he had 2 actually, I think one building, but 2 apartments, so 2 different meters, and he's like, okay, so he hired a local electrician, and submitted us the invoice, and we're gonna pay him half, so I'm sure you know who he is. I thought you were smiling.
I'm working at,
It's a loaded smile.
no, I'm working at the Arts Council,
Yep.
and Flat River Electric's doing electric, and he was just mentioned in there, I'm overhearing the conversation that he's talking to a couple of his employees, and, yeah, we gotta, this, because Low Light and Power's doing this, and,
Right. I think it's to our benefit for them to get to AMI. So I think it's a good incentive. I think I covered, any other questions about the AMI? I talked with Steve and Sarah, and they do consider us the model utility, and couldn't believe it. They really, there's always things in hindsight we could have done better, but for the most part, everything's accurate. It got done in a timely fashion. Everybody bought in, and it was, during the actual 3 weeks, I did very little besides review some reports. It was mainly the staff that did everything, so they deserve pretty much all the credit.
isn't that what you're supposed to be doing?
Well, I hoped I could do a little more since I started it back last year.
You wanted to go out with them, and,
I kind of did.
okay,
So I wanted to see it through and make sure it was perfect.
okay.
You were involved more than you gave yourself credit.
Maybe. Transmission Investment Service Committee. I said nothing new at this time. I did contact Peter Lloyd, MPPA. He did confirm that ITC verbally agreed with MPPA and Grid Alliance, who's another transmission company, that there really isn't a second transmission line that could be built to Lowell that would qualify for zonal cost recovery, meaning we should be putting our eggs in the natural gas pipeline instead of building a second transmission line that will require annual maintenance costs to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. So I still, though, asked him to get a full-blown investigation of my ITC since it won't cost us anything. I just don't want a verbal, you know what I mean? So, nothing new on fiber to the home. Fiber extension to city facilities. I had a meeting with all city figureheads this past week, and we're putting more numbers to paper. Core HiCom has been putting together a whole network communication plan for all city departments. It's very involved with how it would look to have one internet provider, how it would look to have a server over there and share data over servers and be cyber secure. And they're building all of this. We have a meeting with I2 Integration, Core HiCom, Adorio Technologies, and all the figureheads next week to review this, where we'll then plan on giving a presentation to council for the expansion of our fiber loop to other city facilities that would allow us to go forward with the project. I had said that we would probably present October 17th or November 7th. However, Steve Buchla did write a grant for $80,000 to cover a portion of this project. So we're not going to put the cart before the horse. We're going to wait to find out what's determined in the grant. If we get something, it'll affect the cost that we bring back to all different parties. And the fiber extension actually will not be a low light and power cost. I'm willing to share in part of the cost to bring fiber across the city where the servers are located, because that's what we need at the head end for us to eventually save money. But all departments do know that fiber to each department will come out of their department. Light and Power's already put up the initial fiber loop, and that's costed tens of thousands of dollars. So that project is going forward, and we do have a target date